Welcome to everyone who's joining us. Today, we will be speaking on work-based learning experiences within the Navajo Nation. My name is Rosa Rojas Franco. I'm a project coordinator for a Native initiative, specifically our Finds Their Way project. And we also have Kelsey Montano that will also be presenting today.
Yep, Kelsey Montano. I am the Pre-ETS project coordinator, so working very closely with Rosa on this project and looking forward to being part of this session. So thank you.
All right. So I wanted to give a bit of history on how we started to work within the Navajo Nation. We have a Navajo transition partnership here, the Sonoran you said. Our partnership with the Navajo Nation Office of Special Education and Rehabilitation Services, together with local schools, are building capacity for providing transition services and work-based learning opportunities that prepare and support Native youth with disabilities for further education and employment after graduation. The funding was made possible by the Navajo Nation Office of Special Education and Rehabilitation Services. And we'll go more into deep depth of what we're doing up there. But thanks to our partnership, we're able to continue with these work-based learning experiences in the nation.
Which brings us to the Pre-ETS project. So the Pre-ETS project is a partnership with the Arizona Rehabilitation Services Administration. We focus primarily on the work-based learning under the umbrella of Pre-ETS services in general. So part of what that looks like is us developing innovative practices for the local schools, building school capacity to provide work-based learning experiences in general, and improving employment outcomes in the area. So we've already begun some of this work over the last few years, and we're excited to continue to grow and expand and educate the community in general for future partnerships. So
yes, and as we were mentioning previously, we have a partnership with the Navajo Nation, and here within the Sonoran you said we have several different projects, and we're able to braid together our resources. And as Kelsey was mentioning, she's a coordinator for Pre-ETS. I am the project coordinator for our Finds Their Way project, and together we're able to collaborate and provide these opportunities not only for the Navajo Nation, but for other Native communities as well. So the Finds Their Way project, our purpose and objectives, to address those challenges experienced by Native youth with disabilities. Again, engage a network of tribal, state, and community partners. We'll go further into depth into description about that. Increasing access to culturally responsive services and supports, improving employment opportunities and outcomes, promoting Native youth leaders and advocates within their community, and developing a Native and youth-led transition framework unique to each community. In this case, we'll be speaking of our work within the Window Rock area. Again, as we were mentioning, it's very important to braid resources. Within our program, we at the Sonoran, you said we have different programs, and it's very important for us to braid those resources, and we rely on collaboration, not only within the Sonoran you said, but collaboration within the state agencies, RSA. We collaborate with tribal agencies, the tribal vocational rehabilitation services, and collaborating with additional providers. Again, we'll go into further detail later on in our presentation, but I did want to highlight the importance of braiding resources. We all know that sometimes we can be limited on resources, so coming together and collaborate and working for the community and what best fits the community and what is available is what is help us be successful in these work-based learning opportunities that we'll be reviewing. As we're talking about braiding our resources within our center, within the community, we also have to take into consideration our braided indigenous strength approach. So when we're approaching and we're working with our communities, specifically our Native communities, we have to go in with a mindset that, you know, we're going into their community. We need to figure out what they need in a loving way, respectful way, being honest, you know, taking into consideration all of these values that are very valuable to these communities, thinking about what they need, what works for them, what has been working for them, taking into consideration their teachings, their ancestors, the future generations. So when we come in and work with our communities, we're not only coming in and working with, you know, the school, we're working with the community as a whole. Our approach is to, you know, braid these opportunities for them, the resources, give back to the community, figure out what the community is asking for, what is working for, and what is it that they value, and us go in and help incorporate these different type of programs like the work-based learning opportunities that we have been doing in Window Rock.
So back to that pre-employment umbrella of services. As mentioned before, we do focus specifically on the work-based learning experiences. So you can see there's a wealth of information that falls into each category for pre-ETS services. So job exploration, work-based learning, post-secondary education, workplace readiness, and then instruction in self-advocacy. So part of what we're trying to do is incorporate more of these pre-ETS services with local vendors, other organizations that can come help kind of fulfill the other requirements that youth specifically are missing. So bridging that gap there and providing additional resources so that youth have other opportunities outside of what we're able to kind of produce with these work-based learning experiences. But to expand a little bit more, Rosa, if you can skip to the next slide. The work-based learning specific, we focus on job shadowing, career mentorship, career-related competitions, informal interviews, volunteering. You know, there's a slew of things here, but most of it is really that collaboration piece and how we can give these tools to the schools, to the school systems, to the students, educators, and then community in general to be able to expand and further collaborate, you know, outside of just this setting and get youth prepared for life after high school. What is that going to look like? Are they prepared? Are they ready? And without these opportunities, a lot of our youth do not have these opportunities to be able to have pre-employment skills under their belt. So it's really important that we're able to kind of share this information and expand in our rural areas and rural communities so that more students and more communities have this as an option. And so as we go into our school systems, we're using a model that is training the trainer. So we're training the teacher or the educator, the para, in how to implement a transition program, whether or not they have something in place or how to execute their ideas on what that could look like, and kind of finessing that into a sustainable model so that it's a continuation year after year as students, you know, complete the program, they move on, they graduate, whatever their kind of process looks like. So
Adding on to what Kelsey was mentioning, the previous slide mentioned the other areas of pre-ETS, and here at the Sonoran Youth specifically are what we're doing in Window Rock areas, these work-based learning experiences, and they're very important. And it's actually one of my favorite pre-ETS is because of the hands-on. The other skills are equally important, but I've been able to witness how important the hands-on experiences, not only for, you know, any not only for our native students, but any student who is in that transition age. Even for myself, I'm thinking back of when I first graduated high school, going into the employment field, not having experiences. If there would have been these opportunities available, it would have been very nice. So being able to have these work-based learning experiences hands-on in the community has been, a huge area. It's been, huge for the success of our students in that transition period. That's so important as to what's next, whether that be post-secondary education, employment, just being able to experience these experiences in real life is awesome.
So for work-based learning experiences, the eligibility requirements are the students must be between the ages of 14, 20 to 22. That's the age range. They need to be a current student. So whether or not they're enrolled in the local high school, public, private, charter high school, homeschooled, other vocational programs, or even college, they need to be an enrolled student between that age frame. And with that, we are working with students who have documented disabilities. So that includes students who have a 504 plan or IEP or equivalent. I think what's unique about our program is that we don't turn students away. We like to see some of our most kind of overlooked students, the students who people are quick to say, that student's not going to work, or there's reasons why these students are not out. We like to prove them wrong. So I specifically will seek out students who maybe have higher needs, or, in the class potentially have different plans that they need more focus on, just to get them experience. And again, that hands-on model that we're working towards is the difference between working on a packet that's related to employment in the classroom and going out into the workforce and actually experiencing what this would look like, what it feels like, and what it takes to be in competitive integrative employment. It looks different across the board. It looks different from a student who's been in a school system for 4 to 6 years and finally able to get out into the community and work on some real job skills. We have had programs that have great on-campus opportunities, but if you're thinking about those students who have been on campus for 4+ years already, they're ready to go out. And so for us to come in and to be able to provide these services is vital for this population and for these students who wouldn't otherwise have, the opportunity to experience some of this stuff hands-on.
When we're going into our communities, and a lot of times what we will speak to, whether that be the school district or the school, it could change depending on the school, but specifically within Window Rock High School, we work closely with our exceptional student services director and the teachers that they have identified for us to work with. And we have two teachers specifically that we're working with in their classes. And what we do is when we're developing these work-based learning experiences, we have to take into consideration what students will participate. That is something that the school will decide. We give an overview of who can participate, then the school and their staff decide who they would like to. Ideally, we would like to see the juniors, the seniors, the ones who are about to transition out of high school, so that they get these opportunities. But doesn't say that we don't accept any freshmen or sophomores. We will try to include those maybe on-campus opportunities, and then our off-campus opportunities, again, targeting those that are about to exit. We also, when we're developing these work-based learning opportunities, we have to take into consideration the student and their schedules. As most of you know, each schedule is different. Each student has their own schedule. So sometimes that can be a little tricky, and it could be like a Tetris. So working very closely with the ESS director, with the teachers on how can we accommodate to their schedule, what time frame works best for these students to participate in these work-based learning opportunities, because these opportunities do happen during the school day. So it's an extension within their class. So they are receiving credit, whether that be in some of our students, it might be during their life skills class. Other ones, it might be during their elective. That is something that the teachers and our ESS director figure out regarding credits, when it's appropriate for the students, kind of juggling their schedule. We typically like to pick an AM and a PM shift so that our students can participate in these work-based learning opportunities, but keeping it consistent so that every day it's the same time frame and it's easier for the students, the staff, and the teachers to accommodate this schedule from semester to semester. And then when we're developing these work-based learning opportunities as well, it's those community partnerships, whether that be in the community or whether that be the immediate community on campus.
Yeah, I think if you can go back, Rosa, I think the, again, with the development piece of each school's program, it's going to look different regardless. There's going to be a different staff count. There's going to be a different population, student needs. So a lot of it at the beginning in our planning stages are really taking the time to pick apart what's in place, what they can facilitate internally for the school system, and what is approved by the board. And you know, some of that is the transportation. Do you have access to transportation? Do you have, you know, some of our schools have vans. Are we looking at networking a business that's within walking distance? So there's really a lot more that goes into the school system that we have to really figure out and take time to identify students and their age and who is more likely to go off campus versus the ones we want to start off on campus. And then tying in the need for transportation and that scheduling piece in general, like Rosa was touching on, we've had schools that were able to kind of create their own program within and get board approval and be able to use their credit as that elective credit so that they are able to graduate on time, and it kind of replaces what they need as far as graduation requirements in general. But a lot of it too is new. A lot of schools don't know that this is possible. So for us to be able to sit down and be, you know, like, hey, this is what we've done in other school systems. Let's see what parts we can use in your school system. And if it works, it works. If not, then, you know, we take a step back, we use the information that we have learned, and we're able to apply that in different areas or restructure. We go at the pace of the school, so there's no specific timeline really. The average school, I guess we'd start with more hands-on direct support for the first year and a half or so. And with that, we know that turnover happens, especially in education. So being creative and setting the school up for success is very important. So that ongoing communication between us, the school, the students, and our community partners, you know, again, another vital piece to this partnership. Some of those challenges, again, the transportation needs. So in rural areas, we don't always have the transportation that we need. And right now in Window Rock specifically, we're working with VR services to help identify transportation. Right now we have a summer work program running, and part of the parent buy-in was that our students live, you know, however far away, and we need transportation. And so what does that look like? How do we get our student from our home to work? And on our end, on the summer, it's a little different because we can network based off of where the student lives. But when we're thinking about smaller rural communities, we're working with a much smaller selection of businesses and how to get there. So that's an ongoing challenge across the board, whether that's rural or urban. Staffing, again, in education specifically right now, we're having a really hard time keeping educators and teachers and staff in general. So this guide that I've developed is in place to help with that sustainability piece, and offering different steps and breaking apart what we do, how we come in and offer different supports throughout this partnership. And it leaves room for us to move backwards as needed and play with the parts that are working and not, as we fill in the gaps for the needs of staff. We've had instances where we have gone off campus. You know, we started out with Window Rock with 2 off-campus sites, and unfortunately we had some staff turnover and transportation challenges, and that actually created an opportunity for us to come in and create a virtual employment opportunity, which had originally developed outside of COVID. So moving back into a virtual model, also allowing the students to gain real work experience and set real expectations in a virtual model. So another option that we've kind of utilized with some of these setbacks that we face. Again, the scheduling, we operate in a school day schedule. So between, usually it's around 8:30 to 3 is usually the time frame. So an AM slot and a PM slot for off-campus or campus job opportunities. Can be tricky if we're shuffling students around. If a student is being pulled out for, you know, a resource class, or they have to go attend an elective, how are we going to work with them without interrupting that schedule? Or can we replace that credit with this opportunity? So really taking the time to dig deep there. And then parent buy-in. This last year, for example, we did hear from some parents about how it is hard to get more services out, and that it's new and it's scary. And through the partnership, we've been able to show parents that their student is capable of competitive integrative employment. A lot of the shift in that lens of going from classroom to real world experiences have changed from the parent perspective. And that collaboration between us and the school system also shows growth in several ways. And a lot of the skills that are promoted during the school year come from goals that can be pulled from IEPs. So it's not just directly from, you know, that employment piece. Yes, those are great and important transferable skills, but some of them are directly related to the students' IEPs. So it kind of just gets blended together, and we're able to focus on specific set skills and enhance the experience in general.
Tying this all together, you know, we've talked about how we develop work-based learning experiences and some of the challenges that we have been encountering. It's important that we take into consideration, you know, what is going on in the community, in this school, what's already working. You know, if something is working, we don't want to come in and change it, but contribute to it, collaborate, see how we can, you know, take it a step further. So what available resources and supports are currently being used? If there's any effective strategies, practices. I mean, when we're coming into these schools and these communities, who knows best other than them? You know, the staff knows exactly what the students need. This community knows exactly what has been working, what has not been working, where we can come in and assist them. So it's very important to, you know, bring the resources together. As I mentioned, it's not just our program, it's a collaboration and effort with, you know, what resources are available and who we can work with to provide these services for these communities, for our students. And, you know, again, taking into consideration and keeping what's important to our communities, which is, you know, spiritual, mental, social, emotional, physical. A lot of these factors come into, we have to keep in consideration these factors. You know, we're not just coming in and having our students go through a work-based learning experience. This is for the benefit of the students to then give back to their community, to build this type of program within the community. We want this to be a sustainable program, not something that's going to, you know, just fade away within a few years. We want this to be a sustainable program that will benefit our students and our communities.
So this is pretty cool. So tying back into these experiences, 2 students here captured at work. And this was really helpful because the food service is actually on site at the high school where we have the partnership. So not only is it a job that is necessary and available for youth, transitioning into adulthood and work, but it was readily available. So when transportation was an issue, these students can just walk through to the cafeteria and support while they're getting job experience. And with this, we're still able to have a job coach on site and support the students in there's, impacting how we give support to the team that's already on site at the food service, and introducing new ways for these guys to kind of just finish tasks, start to finish. So one of the students here had a really hard time with making pizzas and wanted to like splash in the sauce, and it was a whole thing. But that's where we kind of go in and we can be creative. Can we use a cake, those piping bags? Can he use that so he can squeeze the sauce on instead of throwing the sauce on with a ladle? So that's part of that creative process that we can come in and identify, so that when this student carries these transition or those transferable skills, then we know, well, this is an area that we can focus in on, that the student was kind of challenged in, but there is a way that the student was successful in completing this task. This is what we did, or this is what we implemented. Part of that we'll go into detail in the next few slides, but I always like this example because it's really fun for me.
Here are a few of other examples. We had some students working at the Window Rock Unified School District Administration Office. So they were, as office assistants, greeting, having people sign in. If they were going to leave, have them sign out. And this was previously when transportation was not a challenge. So we were able to transport them off campus to the administration office. The previous slide mentioned on campus. So even though I wanted to express that even though challenges come up, challenges are good because we can learn from them and they open new opportunities. The challenges of transportation came up, but then we were able to create on-campus opportunities, ultimately allowing it to fit into their schedule more easily. So they didn't have to go off campus. They were able to create them on campus, and they would be at their work site within a minute or two, depending how long it took them to walk there.
So part of our internal process is utilizing a task analysis sheet. So this is step by step, depending on the individual, how well they accessed something within the task, how well they kind of work their way through. So it's all kind of scaffolded to that individual. So this might work for one student, and we could use this as a measure of growth, whereas the next student might not need as many steps involved, or we might be tracking a whole other task related, because everybody has their own process. So the unique thing about this is that we're able to see and track student success measured over time. And if we see consistent scores that maybe are lower, we can then assess, by week 2, that 2 or 3, what steps are too hard, or at what point is this student struggling? Is it the task altogether? Is it the first 2 steps? Is it getting started? Is there something in the middle of this task that is just too challenging? So it's a really nice way to measure, again, the growth and success over time. We like to have the students try a good handful of times before we give up, so that we can, and I wouldn't say give up, but move on, so that we can assess and either put something in place to promote their growth within that, those steps. A lot of the times we might see maybe steps 1 through 5, and the student works in a different order. It's not necessarily in order from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but if the job is getting done, that's something that we want to observe and see if it impacts the quality of their job, or if we're working on quantity of how many, of this task is needed for that day, where can we step in and, assist so that we're hitting those goals? And if we're not, then we're making adjustments per the individual.
And what's neat about these task analysis as well is that we share them with the staff, the school, and we ultimately, want to share this with them and train them how to use it so they can use this information for their IEPs. We've had some of our staff, some of our teachers use this information because it aligns with some of the goals that are in the IEP. So that's where the communication comes, in. It's a huge part of the success of the work-based learning experiences is having that communication with our school, setting up those, when there is an IEP, we're asked that if we're allowed to come, we'd like to assist. We'd like our vocational specialists to attend these IEP meetings and they can give input and give any, data related to employment that they're looking for. Every student that goes through our work-based learning experience receives a student resume. So at the end of their experience, they get one of these resumes that goes over their work experience, and we have created it in a way that it's a working document. So if one student, let's just say Bob, if Bob was with us in the fall semester, we would write his experiences down, share this with, goes with the student. We share it with the staff. And if they have any vocational rehabilitation counselors, we also share that with them. And then we would move on to, the next portion for the next semester with a new employer, their information, what strengths, what accommodations we use, what skills they were developing during that experience. We'll have a little summary of their student performance. We have references by the vocational specialist, by the work experience, whoever their supervisor was. In this case, it was the food service, so that we have them give a little quote, some kind of references for when our students are moving on and they might apply somewhere. They have these information available. And then we have recommended next steps that, again, it's unique to every student and every experience, depending on, what they needed during that semester. Our vocational specialists will go through and recommend next steps for each student.
I would say too that with this, theoretically, if we're trying to target juniors and seniors, we have 4 identified, experiences here on this working resume. So if we can catch juniors and use their fall and spring semester, and when they return for their senior year, then we have another fall and spring semester. So depending on the sites, these students would have 4 experiences under their belt. If they are repeating experience at a site, then we're going to try and introduce new tasks or elevate the tasks that are given per site so that they are not, doing the same job unless we feel that there is a need for improvement in that area or in another area of growth, with those tasks that have previously been introduced. So we have had cases like that where we're able to kind of elevate their position on site or at the site. And from there, we can then list the additional job expectations and requirements that the student hit during their experience.
Definitely. I think adding on to that, I've seen where we elevate positions and now they are like in a lead position, and it's pretty neat because now they're mentoring another student that might be coming in, and then our students, like it feels good to know that they're in a leadership position and they've demonstrated those skills, and now they're acting as a mentor for someone else. Part of our process here is each student goes through a pre and post assessment. So at the beginning of their work-based learning experience, they'll take this assessment, and then we take it again at the end. And it helps us know where the student, where they're at. Some of them never even thought of wanting a job at the beginning. Sometimes they are very honest. Some students are very honest and say that they're there because their teacher made them. But by the end, they realize that, they can have a job, they have now motivation, and they desire to develop these skills. And, having that pre and post data is really neat to see. And again, we share this information with the school, the staff, and VR counselors.
Well, this kind of just leads into it. At the end of it, they'll get their student self-evaluation. So series of questions, how they felt, and then we can go ahead and kind of compare with the overall growth for that student and the impact that it had during their experience. Teacher survey, I think, is very valuable. It gives us an opportunity to hear from them on what worked well, what didn't work well. Have they seen growth from their students? Are those skills that we're learning out in the community being transferred back into the school systems? We have had students who come back and they're like, I had a job and I feel really good, and it shows. So that's really neat to see the growth overall from the students and the impact that it has as a whole.
And these surveys also help us and our team know in what areas, we might need to improve. The feedback is important. Our feedback is how we continue to develop our program and figure out how to work with our communities, what's working, what areas could we improve in, all of that. So having these surveys come through and us be able to evaluate how we're performing as a program as well has been beneficial. We also have an employer student evaluation. So at the end of their experience, the employer will fill out one of these, and sometimes it can be a little hard for our employers to answer these, and we ask them to be very honest with this because it helps us know where the student is and what areas we can work with them in their next experience. So it's very important that we ask our employers to be honest and give this feedback. And a lot of our students have areas that they do really good in, but other areas that they might need work in, and that's okay. And we work with the student to know that as well, that it's okay that, we're all learning, and that's what these programs are created for, so that we can help them be successful and, work in those areas of growth.
Yeah, and then wrapping it up with the family satisfaction survey. Have they seen changes in their child? Do they come home with a different perspective? Again, those transferable skills, can we implement those into the home? Are they coming from school? Are they going out into the community? We've had a lot of really positive feedback from families over the last few years, and it's great to see. And it's again another reflection piece that we get to use to understand, in specific areas, maybe the student needed different supports, or the parents didn't know that the parents or the students could work under these conditions. So it's just a really good overview of the impact that this program has.
Yes, as we mentioned, we have been working with Window Rock. Specifically, we started in 2022, the school year 2022-2023. We had 3 student participants and in-person placements for this last school year, 2023-2024. We added 3 more, so a total of 6 student participants, in-person placements, and virtual placements. So, we've been able to slowly, despite the challenges, slowly grow. And, it's really an awesome experience to be part of that, and being able to assist these communities and being able to see that this is working and that there is outcomes.
Part of the program, we also have a job group, where students are able to, this year we actually worked asynchronous just because school schedules are pretty conflicting. Trying to pair up all of our schools statewide is a bit of a challenge. So this year we presented the material virtually. They had the opportunity to review with their class or their group. And then we gave a Google Forms so that they can answer questions related to the presentation that was provided. So here are some of the topics that we would go over, you know, how to call in, teamwork ethics, how to use Zoom and Google Meets, sending professional emails, appropriate hygiene, that is a big one, and how to look for a job in general. So most of this stuff they'll get introduced on the job through, you know, one-to-one training and introduction of these pieces. But to emphasize the importance, we then put it into these presentations where the students can look through at their own pace. They can have further discussion with their school supports, or take it home, work with their family on these things. So it's just another way to kind of, you know, build up on their skill set that they have and make sure that they're understanding the importance of these pieces. It does go through the whole calendar year on a bi-weekly time frame. I will say this next year, we're going to stick to that same model, but incorporate a quarterly not in person, but virtual, so that everybody can be part of this and have a group discussion that way and see some faces of students in different areas that are putting this work in. So relatable topics, relatable experiences, challenges that can be shared amongst their peers. So I look forward to that. The summer work program. So this is where things kind of differ. So it's still, we're still in contract with VR. The summer program is a paid experience over the work-based learning, which is an unpaid internship, or seen as an unpaid internship. So the students that do enter our program for the summer will get paid at the prevailing wage. With the expansion, we are able to have support in, you know, Apache County and serve the students in this area. So we've grown, I think we doubled our numbers from last summer to this summer. I do believe we'll get into details there, but it is a really fun, unique way to kind of keep the momentum that these students have, maybe from the school year into the summer, giving them a sense of purpose, expanding on those skills, giving them different opportunity. Like we said, with transportation issues and challenges there, it is nice to have the students get out into local businesses and support their community that way. The eligibility for this is we're 16 to 22 versus the 14 to 22 for the school year. They need to be a current student and must be a client with state vocational rehabilitation. One thing I do want to emphasize is that these students who are coming in for summer work is not specifically just for summer work. When we're thinking about the partnership with, you know, state VR, tribal VR, we want to make sure that these students are seeking services outside of just this program that can move with them as they continue to age and graduate, to help support in those other services under the Pre-ETS umbrella.
Here are some examples of our summer work program. We have a student here who is working at ACE, and this one was pretty neat. Networking for this employer. This was an employer that we just developed this year. And then our students as well have expanded their time there. You know, they started off, I believe, with only 2 days a week, and now they're 3 days a week. They're working at ACE, and the employer was open to, you know, extending their hours as well. So our students at ACE were in June and now have extended into July. They're working through the summer. The other example we have here was from last year. We had a student helping prep food for the animals at the Navajo Nation Zoo, which was also a neat experience to be able to go through. We know that, you know, sometimes depending on the culture, and some of our students were not able to work at the Navajo Nation Zoo, but our employer was very willing to work with us and willing to accommodate so that our students could, you know, be behind the scenes and preparing the food and not necessarily having to be out there with the animals. So it's very nice when we can find these employers who are willing to accommodate and work with us and be flexible with our students. A few more examples. Here we have the janitorial staff at the Window Rock High School. Over the summer, they're helping prepare everything for the next school year. And again, going over the numbers. Summer 2023, 3 students, 2 community partners. This summer, we were able to move on to 6 student participants. We had 1 pending that, we're hoping goes through before the end of summer, and 3 community partners that they're working at. So again, despite the challenges, there is growth. It might not be as big as some of us might want to see, but growth is growth. And this is huge for our students. There's 3 more students participating. We have more community partners. We're bringing awareness to the community. Again, the parents, that buy-in part, seeing that it is possible and their students can work, and seeing the community come together to support programs like this it's very rewarding to be part of. And wrapping up, we wanted to talk about initiatives that we have been working on. We did mention that our program here specifically highlights work-based learning experiences. So introducing other providers, that's something that we are currently working on. We've been working this last semester, is bringing on another Pre-ETS provider that will be coming into the school at Window Rock High School, pulling students a few hours, a few times a week, and working on those other 4 areas and providing other assistance. There might be sometimes providers that work over the summer, and some of our students might not want to participate with our summer work program, and that's totally okay. It's working together and introducing other providers to the school to see what benefits and what's available to them. We also have been working with state and tribal vocational rehabilitation services to identify transportation providers. It is very rural out there, and transportation has been a challenge for us, but we are in the works. We're working with state VR. They've had those conversations, figuring out how we can get providers out there, or how we can work together, state VR and tribal VR, to assist and come up with ways to get transportation so more students can participate in these summer work experiences. And then providing virtual work-based learning opportunities for those who might not be able to have transportation and might not be able to leave their house for some reason or another. Some of our students, their family depends on them because they have businesses, family-owned businesses. We've had students tell us that they have to take care of someone at home. So being able to provide virtual opportunities for the students who might not be able to go out into the community is something that we're also working on and is one of our initiatives. And that brings us to the end for any questions.
So Rosa and Kelsey, great presentation. So we do have one question in the chat, and it is the Sonoran, you said, staff open to introducing the work-based learning experience program to other tribal nations across the state?
Yeah, so I think the overall goal, of course, is expansion. I think with our project as it's growing, it'll be important for us to be able to have a sustainable team to be able to support in these areas. So through growth, through collaboration, as we continue to expand, of course, we want to support in as many parts of the state that we can. I think that's really important. But it takes time, like most good things, it takes time.
Yes, and I wanted to add on to that. Here at the Sonoran, you said we do have different projects going on that, we all work together and collaborate. For example, we have our Circle of Indigenous Empowerment. Under the Circle of Indigenous Empowerment, I work as a project coordinator for Find Their Way. So it is revolving around transition and native framework and, identifying what the community needs. Kelsey is project coordinator for Pre-ETS, but part of our Circle of Indigenous Empowerment is exactly that. We do aim to work with, anyone across the state of Arizona, any tribe across the state of Arizona. So definitely reach out if you have any questions. We can figure out how we can collaborate, some way or another, but that is definitely our goal, is to work with these communities across the state of Arizona.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions from the audience? Just a comment from Benita McCary with the Native American Disability Law Center, stating it would be great to be part of providing resources to students. So thank you for your comment, Benita. Okay, I see no other questions.
Hello, this is Sandra. I'm the Tribal Liaison for Division of Employment and Rehabilitation Services with Office of Tribal Relation. I do have a question. Once an individual reaches age 23, what happens? This program is only for like 14 to 22. So what happens after 23? Do they transition into another program or?
So ideally, and great question. So ideally with our collaboration with the local providers, so in this case, our work with Window Rock High School, we're partnering and getting Elite is one of the vendors on board there. So through them, they're then able to kind of see through some other services as they transition to adulthood. And through the partnership with vocational rehabilitation, hopefully that partnership there is able to see to that those students are on the right path to either continuing in that employment direction, whether that is them applying to the job after they graduate or continuing on those transition skills that they can then continue on through the adult services.
I was muted, sorry. And specifically, the pre-employment transition team, it is tailored to that transition age. But for example, under our Circle of Indigenous Empowerment, it is of all ages. So we might be able to connect some of these participants to other resources, as Kelsey was mentioning, partners that we might have, whether that be like state VR, or tribal VR, or other vendors. So the pre-employment team, yes, that might be only 14 to 22, but under the CIE, we can, help connect them to those other resources.
Okay, thank you.
There's also a couple more questions in the chat. One was, do you provide information for those students receiving SSI to continue to work?
I think my computer froze. What was the question, Agnes?
That's okay. So it's in the chat. It says, do you provide information for those students receiving SSI to continue to work, Social Security?
So for the summer work, we do partner we did this last summer anyways, with Ability 360, and we did a parent informational night so that the parents do have resources to kind of verify the income that's going to maybe impact them. Typically with the hours that we work with the students, it's under 120 hours, so it doesn't impact their Social Security, but the reporting does have to be done. So they are set up with somebody that would be able to assist them further. We don't necessarily specialize, if you would, in that area, and it changes per individual and how many hours they hit in general. So, but they would leave with information that would help them.
And the other question was, can you go over the eligibility requirements for the work-based learning program again?
Yeah, so work-based learning, we don't currently have any partnerships with transition to work schools. So that is something to note that we didn't mention. But students or schools that have transition programs in place where we can come in and elevate, the students are 14 to 22 age range with a documented disability, 504 IEP or equivalent. Sometimes there needs to be approval of the board, so that could be something to consider, and we're more than happy to speak on the progress that we've had in the partnerships in general. But a lot of it is geared towards what the school needs and how we can work around those requirements. So it's different per school that we serve.
Thank you very much, Kelsey and Rosa. So this, we're getting to the end of our presentation. It's going to be at the hour. So I wanted to thank everyone for joining us for this presentation and to Rosa and Kelsey for presenting.